I had the great pleasure of being invited to Logically's second event, LogicCon, in Columbus, Ohio, the week of the 15th of October, 2024. Logically is a managed service provider, but a very large one. I've also had the great pleasure of being acquired. I was the first MSP to be acquired by Logically. So I feel like I'm really part of the community still, or part of the family still. But I went on site, they had a great event. I set up the podcast booth. I had a lot of great conversations with the staff of Logically, with some vendors that were there, and some other people. It was a great time. I'm humbled and thankful that I got the opportunity to do that. The following is one of the conversations at this great event. I want to thank Logically for letting me do this. I had a great time. Thanks for listening.
Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because of working way too much. I found myself at 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. I took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People ask me, how'd you do it? What's the secret? I need to lose weight. How'd you do it? How did I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others.
Joey Pinz.
So nice to talk to you. Why is Southington, Connecticut such a great city to grow up in?
You know, it's small enough that it's you get to know everybody, but it's big enough that you have other things to do. So, yeah.
But it made this list.
I don't know.
It's like top 3 best cities in the country.
Well, maybe because ESPN moved in next door,
They're
so they
still-
all want to be. Yeah, they want to be there. But my folks are still there. My brother's still there. Yeah.
It's a great city.
It is.
You know,
yeah.
I grew up close.
It's a
to there.
next town over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
next
So
town
we,
over.
it's actually still a town, even though there's like 40,000 people. It's still a town.
Southington
Yeah.
is only 40,000 people.
Well, it was back. I don't even know what it is now, but yeah, I think it's still around the same. Yeah, it's still a town.
Small town
Yeah.
Connecticut.
Yeah, small town Connecticut.
It's
Yeah.
a great place to. I like to go and visit. I'm not there anymore, but it's a great place to visit.
Yeah, it is. You just go back home always, Yeah.
It's always so fun. Yeah. Why? Tell me about the Coaching Cafe.
So the Coaching Cafe was really born out of the idea of we at ChannelWise we have an expert advice network where you can go ahead and get advice on anything from HR, finance, sales, marketing, and we're trying to serve the channel community. And it came out of that where we thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could do an experiential version and bring it to different conferences? And we launched last year. And we did the first one and it was a huge hit. We had people line out the door. People were really excited about it. So then we started doing them and then folks came and said, hey, can you do them at our conference? And, as an entrepreneur, it's this interesting roller coaster journey and you don't know what's around the next corner kind of thing. And so it wasn't really set out to be a business model, but then it turned into one because it's very impactful for folks and the people that come in the conferences, they love it because it's something different for their show. So
It's amazing what the market kind of demands.
absolutely. Well, I mean, the one-on-one advice it's always a big hit, which is why I started ChannelWise, right? But then bringing it into conferences, I mean, there's always a way to kind of like send someone a message and say, hey, I want to meet you. I don't know. We go to a lot of shows and people are always like sending me meeting requests. I'm like, I don't know you. But with the Coaching Cafe, it's like, oh, I'm saying I want to help. Right. So we either bring our coaches or we use the folks that are already at the conference. And get like in the case of this one of Logically where we are today, they wanted their SMEs, and their executives to sit down and be able to have one-on-ones with customers and get feedback and things like that. So it's a little bit of a different spin on it, but it's still that one-on-one idea.
You mentioned SME, subject matter
expert. Sorry. Yeah.
And of course, we're here in Columbus, Ohio.
Yes, we are.
At Logically's second event, LogicCon. Very, very cool. It's a great event. They're all in there speaking at the keynote right now. What's some of your goals for the next couple of days, Kathryn?
Well, we want to fill up the cafe. We have a lot of folks already signed up, but our role here is to help and be impactful. And and out of the whole experience, we first launched this, it was manual. We did it manually, and then I thought for sure someone had a platform that kind of facilitated all this, but they didn't. So we built one. So about 8 months ago, we built a whole platform around this because it seems like it would be easy. Oh, maybe I'll just put a calendar link but it's not, because it's a specific day, time zones, like all these crazy things that you don't really think about. And we like to make it an experience. We don't want people to just come and sit at a table and chat with somebody. We want the coaches or experts or subject matter experts or executives, whoever's doing the coaching, we want them to feel like it's a it's a cafe. And then the folks that come, and you've been a coach many times, and the folks that come in, we want them to feel like they're getting an experience. But for me, the great thing over the next couple of days is going to be seeing the people who get that one-on-one time, because they always come up to me and say thank you, that it was really impactful. They got a question that they've been dying to ask. They got in front of somebody that they wouldn't normally be able to get in front of. So yeah.
Yeah, the few times that I've done it's been really, really cool. I mean, people come in and, ask you questions, and, I never give advice, but I always say, well, here's a situation that I had that was similar,
Right.
and this is what I did and didn't do right, and perhaps you can, grow from it. And everybody seems to win because you feel great helping, and people feeling great being helped.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's what it is people don't, people want to ask the questions, but when you offer them the opportunity, now they're like, oh, hey, this is available to me. You know what I mean? And I can set the time. So yeah, we talk about it, as you know, Joe, when folks go to be coaches in the cafe, we send out a little document that said, how to have a good session. And we say, we say advice, but it's like, we tell them, like, don't should all over someone. Like, don't say, you should do this or you should do that. So we make sure that when you're talking to the person, like you said, it's like, from my experience, this is what I do, and this is how I've handled it. So it's not, you go ahead and do this or something like that. So yeah.
Yeah, it's not fortune telling or
Yeah.
anything. It's just,
Exactly.
yeah, you're just kind of sharing experiences. Talk to me also, you said you started ChannelWise,
Yeah.
and you had a certain direction you wanted to go, but like
Yeah.
any great entrepreneur, you had to pivot because the market demanded.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what was the original intent?
Well, the interesting thing is we haven't really pivoted. We just added this as an extension
Ah.
of, because ChannelWise is still going, so people can book a one-on-one time via a video call. And this is experiential. This is one-on-one in person. So it's just an extension of what we're already doing, but it's kind of another, revenue stream, so to speak, versus a pivot. Yeah. Which I don't have a problem with pivot. It's just, for us, it was like, well, this is just an extension of what we're doing. Yeah.
Define channel.
So for me, the channel is, if the vast majority of your revenue comes from someone else selling your stuff, you're in the channel. That's the way I look at it, because there are a ton of, SaaS tools that do partner marketing or, and they affiliate marketing, right? Where they will give a link, and if someone buys your software and they get X%. But in the channel, the IT telecom tech channel, it really, the livelihood of some of these companies lives or dies depending on MSPs or partners, or like service leadership calls them TSPs. So, trying to encompass the whole model. So, whatever you want to call it, that's what I see as the channel. And it's such a special place.
It really is.
It really is. Yeah. And when I first got into it, it was like almost 20 years ago now. And I was like, what's the big deal? Well, it's funny because I joke about the fact that it's like Hotel California. You can check out, but you can't leave.
Never leave.
And and the people that you meet and form relationships with over the years become like your good friends, and you continue to stay in touch with them no matter where they are. So, yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about technology because I go to some conferences and there's like telco people and they think they're part of the channel. And then
Yeah.
there's all these kind of, you mentioned MSP, managed service provider, technology service provider, which TSP, which service leadership, which is part of ConnectWise uses.
Yeah.
All these terms get thrown around, but we're really talking about technology providers that end up selling technology of these big, great vendors to
Correct.
the small to medium to enterprise businesses.
Yes, exactly. So that would be the channel. And the telcos are because they're actually a lot of the agent model is a little bit different, right? So the agents, they're actually, some of them are looking to become technology service providers as a whole versus just selling connectivity, so to speak. And even in the AV side, my husband's in the AV channel.
Yeah.
And everything runs on their networks, right? All these projectors and room systems and all that stuff runs over a network. So even those folks are starting to become, more of the managed services aspect. So there's a lot of convergence, if you will, or the lines being a little bit blurred between all of the different folks. So that's why you see a lot of these shows now having both or multiple lines there.
So you've got this great coaching cafe set up there. It's right across from us. You'll have coaches in there, some one-on-one sessions. What's your largest challenge, Kathryn?
I would say the largest challenge is, you mean with the coaching cafe or just in general?
Let's go coaching cafe.
The coaching
first.
cafe, I think the largest, I don't know if there's a challenge necessarily with the coaching cafe. It's just, maybe sometimes it's convincing people that it's okay to book these appointments. You know what I mean? But typically when we go to a show now, the first one we didn't know anything about, right? You were in the very first one.
Yes.
And we didn't know anything about, and I was,
Still great.
that I didn't sleep like the whole night before because I was like, what if we
You did a
open the
great
doors
job.
and no one's there because we didn't have anybody booked ahead of time because we didn't even know. And we had a line out the door. We coached over 300 people. It was
Great.
nuts, right? And so now, because we have the software, we can see. And typically, before I even get on the plane to go to one of these, we're 60% booked right now. So I think it's just getting the word out and letting people know that it's available to them. It's impactful. But there's, I don't know necessarily that there's a challenge related to it. I think getting other conferences to realize it's a thing. And again, folks will try to do this themselves, and then they'll call us and say, "Now I realize." How hard this was, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think just getting people to feel comfortable. I think sometimes, yeah.
Well, you make it look easy. That's
Yeah,
the
that's
thing.
probably right.
That's-
But that's like with anything. How many people like, I'm just gonna open a bar. I'm just
Right,
gonna open a
it's
restaurant
still-
when I retire, and then you're like, no,
Yeah.
not so much.
A little more to it, yeah. So some of the conferences, some of the events say, well, we have our own coaches. We don't want to kind of compete with you.
Yeah.
And to that you say what?
So we say that's fine. We can use your own coaches. We can supplement with ours. We're not really trying to compete with anybody because even with ChannelWise, I mean, you can't apply or pay to be an expert. You have to be invited because we're pretty strict with our vetting process. We want to make sure people are legit, right? But they're all experts and subject matter experts in the channel overall. But if a conference has or a company has their own peer groups or coaches or whatever, we don't need to bring our own. We'll just arrange it with them with their own folks.
And if somebody wants to become a coach, how do they do so?
So you could reach out to us, reach out to the conference. But typically for us anyway, if ChannelWise is staging it, our own cafes at a conference, we will be using our own experts. So you have to be, sort of vetted already, or sponsors. So some of the sponsors of the show want to have a seat in the cafe because they want to meet one-on-one with potential customers or current customers. And they want to get some feedback.
Has AI helped in what you do here?
You mean with the coaching cafe?
Yeah.
No, not really. It's not really something that's necessarily AI driven at all. And it's funny, people use AI super loosely, right? So
Yes.
we do have an algorithm that folks, when you some shows, so we have it set up where some shows will ask some survey questions before you book an appointment. So it'll say, oh, what are you interested interested in learning about, and then our algorithm will, kind of match you and say, hey, here's some suggested coaches, but that's not really AI. So
Mm.
yeah.
And your range. I want to make people understand that
Yeah.
it's sales, it's marketing, it's HR. I mean, it's really the whole.
Yeah, we have AI, cybersecurity. Here at at the LogicCon conference, it's the CEO's in there. He's in Joshua Skeens,
It's great.
who is going to chat with customers and things there about all sorts of things. I think their CTO is in there. We have a cyber insurance person in. So really, again, it's the theme of your show. When we do the MSP shows, it's I mean, it runs the entire gamut. We have people who are in there specifically talking about distribution. A lot of sales and marketing, as you know, those are big topics in the channel for sure.
Anything you don't coach.
No, because if someone will get a benefit of a one-on-one from somebody, it really is up to the organizers of the show because they know their audience better than I do. I mean, if I'm going to an MSP show, I pretty much know what they're looking for, or even small business. So we have another very large company that is going to be deploying these as in-booth activations. They're doing startup conferences. And so we know, and I know the startup world because I'm a startup. So, it really, I mean, if you wanted to do like a fitness show or something, like it could be the supplement, people from supplement companies talking about it. You know what I mean? So there's really, the Coaching Cafe is agnostic. It's a thing. We also have like different domains. So we have like Genius Hub, we have different things so that you don't have to call it coaching if you don't want to, that kind of thing. And it can be all white labeled. So we could either use it through ChannelWise or you can white label it to whatever. So that's these folks, they're doing it at a startup week. And the whole thing's branded to them.
Wow.
Yeah.
You mentioned about you built a platform. What did that entail?
A lot. I think you and I joked about this because you built a platform, right? And so, we people say like a boat is a hole in the ocean you throw money into. It's like the platform is a hole in the ether that you just keep piling money into. So, So, I mean, the good news is we already had ChannelWise built that was set up to do some of this stuff, like the one-to-one. The challenge is with a platform where you're doing it live on site. It's the location of the room. Sometimes you only have room for 6 people, but 14 want to coach. So you have to be able to switch the people in and out throughout the day. Or Joe is available at 9 to 10 with their 25-minute session. So you have like 2 sessions, but then you're not available again until 2. So, those are the kinds of logistical things. And then the time zones. I mean, wow.
The time zone's a big issue.
Oh, and Eastern Daylight Time. I tell you, no one be happier than I will in my whole entire, and I'm sure every programmer that's listening to this would be happier when they get rid of any kind of daylight savings, anything.
Oh, and then make the change.
Yes, because coming out, I have one happening that's a virtual. We do the virtually too. So I have a virtual one that's global. And those folks are a lot of them are in Japan and Australia and different places. So when you're setting this up, it's the time zone of the location. Yep. And then you have people traveling in. So for here, we're in Eastern time. And then folks are traveling in from Pacific. So it has to go on their calendar in the time zone of the event because the minute you land, it switches. Right. So there's all these things that you really have to think through. Yeah, it's a lot.
I end up keeping my laptop on East no matter where I go.
I keep my laptop on East. My phone though, everyone changes because when you land, I mean, unless you hard set it, it's going to change. So if it goes on in Pacific time, you're not going to show up here till 3 hours later by accident, But our software does it. We'll send an email and a text message reminder. So so that's a lot. And I think when we were at the big show in last March, it was daylight savings kicked in. Yeah. So we had to account for that too. So it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah.
And then some countries do daylight savings different, like they wait a couple weeks than we do.
Correct. Correct. So, like France, for example, we're in, I think we changed the first weekend of November. They changed the last week of October. So that's with the virtual one that we're doing. It's, we're doing two of them. One's for like EMEA. So it's like France and different places like that. And then we have, one for APJ region. So yeah, it's it's a good time.
So,
Yeah.
so you would think time wouldn't be an issue, but it really
It
is.
is. And again, because everyone's traveling in from different
Right.
places too. I
Right.
mean, it'd be nice if everybody was here in Ohio for this one conference,
Right.
but that's not how it
That's not how it
works.
works,
Yeah.
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 And if somebody's at an event and they see the Coaching Cafe, how can they get coaching?
So we have the QR code set up everywhere. You can snap it, and then you can choose your coach. Each usually at the desk, we have all the different coaches' QR codes, or you can just walk up and say, is there an appointment? And we do walk-ins as well. Yeah.
So I think you know my story, Catherine. I
Yeah.
started my business there in Connecticut in
Yeah.
the 90s, was working way too hard, 14, 15-hour days. You're no stranger to this.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Found myself at 340 pounds.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Doctor said, if I don't lose the weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. Spend the next 6-7 months, lost about 130 pounds.
I know.
People ask me how.
Yeah.
Like there's some secret. I always say discipline. I got focus, routine. That's how I lost it. That's how I try to keep it off. I wonder how discipline plays a role in your life.
I don't have a choice to be disciplined, honestly, because I have two kids. My husband's awesome, but sometimes a lot of things fall on me, right? And we have a dog too. My mom, as you know, is paraplegic, and so so I'm in that sort of sandwich generation where I'm taking care of my kids and my folks. And then I have my business that I'm doing, and a lot of the other work that I do globally is women in tech. I do a lot of work with the Women in Tech Global Movement, and so I speak internationally for them, lead trade missions. So there's a lot, right? And so discipline plays a lot in it. I'm fortunately, maybe, I don't know if folks out there think it's fortunate or not, but I wake up at 4 in the morning. It's just who I am. And so I get probably a good 2 hours of work done before anyone even wakes up in my house.
Wow.
And then I try not to work at night after the kids come home. We try, but sometimes you can't. And then on the weekends, I just naturally wake up. So I'm able to get some of the stuff done. But for me, it's not, I don't look at it as work. I feel like if I looked at it, when I start looking at it as work, I'm going to do something else. Because that is, I enjoy what I'm doing, right? My thing, when I left corporate, it was everything I'm doing is having an impact. If it has an impact, I'm going to do it. If it doesn't, and obviously it needs to make money. I don't run nonprofits, but at the end of the day, it's what I'm doing and I'm, bringing in revenue, but I'm also making an impact. Then that's where I want to focus my energy.
So my next natural question is, what motivates you? It seems to impact us.
It is motivate. You've seen me a lot.
Yes.
I help everybody. I think that it's I think there's too much negativity and isolationism, or everybody looks out for themselves. I didn't grow up like that. Like in our small towns that we grew up in, neighbors helped each other, and that's just the way I grew up. And so the way I look at it is if I'm helping you do more business, you'll do more business with me, right? Or you'll recommend me to somebody to say, even if we don't do business, you'll recommend me. You do it all the time for me. You did it today, right? You said, hey, I want to recommend your Coaching Cafe to this conference. And so that's how I really believe that you get farther in the world, and that's how you make the impact. And I've been in sales most of my career, so it's it's not all altruistic. Like there has to be, because someone has to eat, right? Kids have to go to college and all that stuff. But I do believe that there is a way to mix them that is positive for everyone.
That certainly is. So then how do you measure success? Kathryn?
Well, obviously I have a CFO, so we look at the bottom line.
Sure.
In there. But I think for me, measuring success is that impact. When I look back at things, I think as you get to a certain level in your career and your life and stuff too, it's like, is anyone going to remember what I did, how I helped them. There was one show that we did a coaching cafe at, and we also, obviously through ChannelWise do calls, but and I hear that all the time from folks that make one-on-ones through ChannelWise are like, that was so helpful. But there was one in particular, because this is only a year old. There was one in particular last year where it was a couple. They came into the cafe to speak to an expert, and they had they're having troubles financially, and that the coach that was with them talked them off the ledge, and they came over and hugged me with tears in their eyes, and they said, thank you, thank you for offering us this opportunity. And I was like, okay, done, we're gonna keep doing them. You know what I mean?
That's all you needed.
So I think that, yeah, I think that that's what the important point is.
So wonderful to see you. Thanks for speaking to me today. Anybody listening, watching, how can they get in touch with you?
So I'm on LinkedIn. It's linkedin.com/in/I am Kat Rose. You can link in with me there. ChannelWise.com is where everything is related to the Coaching Cafe and ChannelWise. So thanks, Joe.
Thank you so much. Have a
Appreciate
great
it.
event. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypinz.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.